Hello and welcome back to the New Compass Collectibles YouTube channel. Today we're talking auction results, and this is a big one because we've got ComicLink's featured auction, which is their quarterly auction. That means we've got a lot of big sales to talk about, and let's get into it. As you can see, we're going over another ComicLink auction recap. This one is the May/June featured auction. A lot of big sales, a lot of big items. Their featured auction is more of a quarterly auction that has their bigger auction items. The focused auction is their monthly items, which are a little bit lower in price. Still some big items in those auctions too. See those sales in my previous videos. But the featured auction has the really premium stuff, so a lot of exciting stuff to look at today. I'm going to look at the overall auction statistics, just the total number of items sold and how much revenue was brought in by ComicLink on these sales. And then we'll highlight some of the biggest sales in each era. So we'll go through from modern to golden age books and even platinum age books today. We have a few to look at there as well. So I have the individual sales that were at the top of the charts in each of those categories. And I also did comps to recent sales to see if these were high or low sales this time. So let's take a look. Auction totals for this 1 week of sales was 4.7 million. Chart on the right, you can see auction session 1, the average sale was $5,581. When I say average, I'm saying the median sale, so half of the sales were below this number, half of the sales were above this number. And session 2, the median sale was $692, so lower value, but still like big books. Now looking at the sales by age, definitely more Silver Age books here than any other age. A few platinum sales, 4 books there. We'll look at those later as well. Golden Age books, 373 sales. The average sale for Golden Age was $1,348. So over $1,000 there, much higher than the Silver Age, about double the Silver Age. The average there was $788 with 1,000 sales in the Silver Age. So more Silver Age books, but the Golden Age books were higher value on average, not too surprising. Bronze Age books, 686 sales for an average of $550 per sale. The modern books, 300 with an average sale of $450. Fewer modern books in this auction. You'll see more of an equal distribution in the focused auctions between silver, bronze, and modern. They're about similar number of items. In these more premium auctions, it looks like we get a higher skew towards the Silver Age, which makes sense because there are more expensive books in that era. Now let's switch to look at some of the individual sales. We're going to look at the big sales from the auction. So let's go ahead and get started looking at the individual sales. So I'm going to be showing the top 5 sales in each category: modern, bronze, silver, golden, and then even platinum age. So I'm going to go through the top 5 listings, the top 5 sales, starting with number 5 and going to number 1 being the highest sale in each of those categories. And once I go through all of the listings, I do have a table that puts all this information together. And in that table, I'm going to show the most recent sale to be able to do a comparison from these ComicLink sales to sales that were recorded in GPA, just to see if these were high or low sales in this auction. So let's get started with Amazing Spider-Man 300. This was the 5th highest sale in the modern age. This was a 9.8, which was signed by both Stan Lee and Todd McFarlane. So we have both signatures here on the center of the book. A full Todd McFarlane signature, not just a T McFarlane. This 9.8 sold for $8,111. Wolverine Limited Series 1. Here we have a 9.9. Now this is obviously a big topic of discussion in the industry today. The prevalence of 9.9s, what kind of sales or values should 9.9s get, especially as CGC seems to be starting to assign more 9.9 grades. I do have an entire video coming out about 9.9 premiums and what historical premiums have been given for 9.9 books in previous sales. So look for that coming soon. This particular auction, there were 2 9.9s. This 9.9, well, there may have been more, but 2 at least in the top 5 sales. So 9.9 Wolverine Limited Series number 1 sold for $11,000. Now the next one is also a 9.9. This is New Mutants 87. A 9.9 here sold for $15,751. Now the second highest sale in the modern age was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 1. And a 9.2 sold for $17,250. And the number 1 sale for the modern age was Albedo number 2 and a 9.8. These don't come up that often, and this looks like a really nice copy of it. You see the black cover. It's obviously hard to get a 9.8. There's a little bit of white in the corner there, probably a bindery tear, so not usually going to stop it from getting a 9.8. But other than that, the book looks pretty clean. Maybe a little bit of white there without zooming in. And the ComicLink photos aren't as high a quality as Heritage photos, so you can't zoom in quite as far to see the details on the book. You can only get this much detail, which doesn't really show exactly what's happening with that book. So it's hard to get a good indication from ComicLink photos what's happening. Here we are now in the Bronze Age. So the 5th highest sale in the Bronze Age was a signed copy of Star Wars number 1. Kenny Baker, Anthony Daniels, Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, Peter Mayhew, and David Prowse, and Harrison Ford. So Harrison Ford, I think, is probably a harder get than a lot of the other signatures. He doesn't do that many appearances or sign that many books, so that adds to the value of this book for sure. So the 9.4 signed by like the whole cast sold for $10,255. That was the number 5 sale. So moving on to number 4 is a Tomb of Dracula number 10 and a 9.8. You know, this one really spiked during the comic boom and has been going down ever since. We'll look a little bit further in the video at comparisons to see how this book has trended and how this sale compares. But a 9.8 selling in this auction for a little over $15,000. Now number 3 was Marvel Spotlight number 5. This was a 9.4 selling for $16,600. High grade copy. This book is very hard to get in a high grade. You know, a 9.8 set like a huge record back in the comic boom, and that really brought some attention to this book. So high grade copies are expensive for sure. Number 2 sale was Amazing Spider-Man number 129. This was 9.8, and it sold for $17,519. That is one of the more expensive books in the Bronze Age, but number 1 was also an Amazing Spider-Man 129 and a 9.8, and this one sold for $24,350. So this one was marked with a CVA designation. It's not a CGC grade. CVA is a separate third party that puts a sticker on a book if they think it presents exceptionally well for the grade. So what they're saying is that this 9.8 looks better than other 9.8s. Maybe someone is thinking that this has a chance at getting a 9.9 if they were to resubmit, or maybe they're going to try to buy a few 9.8s and resubmit like a batch of books to CGC. Does this book have a chance at a 9.9? Well, I don't really know. I mean, that's up to CGC to decide. Someone probably thinks it's worth taking their chances. I don't think that's a bad idea. If you submitted it, took a chance on it, it comes back at 9.9, it's a huge profit. So even if it comes back at a 9.8, you paid for the grading fee, you took the chance, and you wouldn't be able to resell it, I would guess, for as much as this 9.8 went for. But if you submit 10 9.8s and you get one of them to come back in a 9.9, it would make the whole process worthwhile. Okay, now we're looking at the top 5 Silver Age books. The 5th sale was a Tales of Suspense 39. This was in a 8.5, which sold for $62,000. This is in an old label, old slab, but it looks like a very nice copy. You know, it's like a 1.5 quote copy, not quite the double quotes that a lot of people talk about when they look at Iron Man first appearance books. It does have the little blue below the table, so those are the two like centering issues that people take a look at when they're looking at Tales of Suspense 39. I don't know how much people actually care about that, but it is something that I've heard some people talk about when they're talking about this book. The number 4 sale was a Fantastic Four number 48. This was in a 9.8 for $69,000. This is a 9.8 white page copy. Also a very clean looking book. Incredible Hulk number 1 comes in at number 3 for $88,000. This is a 7.5 grade copy. This is again a 7.5 white page copy. So I don't think it's that common to see white pages on these books. It gives a little bit of a premium. Not something that I pay attention to very much when I'm buying books, but I know that the white page copies can sell for a little bit higher sometimes. And in number 2 is an Avengers number 1. Avengers number 1, 9.4, sold for $120,000. Pretty rare to see this book in such a high grade, and again we have a white page copy here. Now this one you see the other sticker. This one has a QES sticker, another third party. In their estimation, it presents very well for the grade that CGC has given it. I do think there is value in saying whether a book presents well for the grade. So that's what these stickers are trying to indicate, both with the QES stickers and the CVA stickers. You know, some defects are worse than others in terms of how they make the book look in the slab and the presentation of that book. So I do think there is value in saying that for a particular grade, this book looks better than another book. And that's what these stickers are trying to represent. So in as far as you look at the sticker as an indicator that, yeah, this book presents well for the grade, so maybe if a particular grade of a book would sell from, you know, anywhere from $1,000 to $1,200, you know, the designation, the labeling with the sticker might make me more inclined to pay on the higher end of that range, but it wouldn't affect my assessment of the book too much. I would still look at it on my own and look at the presentation and the eye appeal of the book, you know, just sort of on its own merits. Now the number 1 book, the number 1 sale for the Silver Age was Fantastic Four number 5. This isn't one that we've seen on a lot of number 1s or tops of lists lately. It has been correcting quite a lot since the comic boom, but it was the highest selling book in this particular auction of Fantastic Four number 5, 9.4, sold for $130,000. Okay, moving on to the Golden Age. Now the Golden Age is always interesting because you see different books pop up here depending on what's listed in any given auction. So for this auction we had in number 5, Submariner Comics number 1. This is in a 5.0. And this is from 1941, selling for $23,257. So this is Submariner Comics number 1, the original, not to be confused with the Submariner number 1 that was printed in 1968, which is the one that you most often will see sold. This is from the Golden Age and really is that classic World War II iconography cover. The 4th highest sale in the Golden Age was this All-American Comics number 61, 7.0, sold for $31,000. Again, this one was designated by CVA as exceptional for the grade. I wasn't familiar with this book, and I'm not familiar with DC books in general. So just looking at the ComicLink description, Solomon Grundy is a swamp-born nemesis of the Golden Age Green Lantern, and this is his first appearance and a rare book according to ComicLink here. So the origin and first appearance of Solomon Grundy, villain and nemesis of the original Green Lantern from the Golden Age. Number 3 sale in the Golden Age was this Captain America number 1. So this is a Captain America number 1 with a 0.5. It's actually incomplete. So cover and 11 pages detached, 11 pages and back cover missing, affects story, obviously. So this is an incomplete copy, but the interesting thing is it's from the personal collection of Joe Simon. So Joe Simon, one of the creators, says right here on the slab, cover, stories, and art by Joe Simon and Jack Kirby. So Joe Simon's personal copy, a 0.5 graded by CBCS. This sold for $38,000. Here we have the number 2 sale in the Golden Age. This is Mad number 1. This is a 9.8. It's actually a Gaines file copy. So there's many Gaines file copies of EC books. Those are all high-grade copies, and they fetch a pretty high premium, both because of their grade, and it seems like the Gaines file copies just in general are pretty highly sought after. But this 9.8 sold for $52,069. And now the #1 sale in the Golden Age, Detective Comics number 27. Not surprising to see this one on the top of the list, but it is surprising not to see the Detective Comics number 27, famous cover here. Unfortunately, the cover is missing on this copy. Not only that, the back cover and the centerfold are actually married, so that's why the qualified grade on this one. So it's a no grade qualified, missing the front cover, but still, this particular book sold for $97,000. Now finally, we're actually going to show some platinum sales today. So platinum age is before 1938 or 1937. Usually anything before the Action Comics #1, first appearance of Superman would be considered platinum age. And there's not usually a lot of sales in the platinum age, but there are a couple here in this auction that I think it was worth showing because they are interesting. So these were the platinum age sales in this auction. There were only 4, but they did sell for a decent amount of money. 3 of these were actually Lone Ranger magazine. So Lone Ranger magazine #1. This is a Lone Ranger, Tonto, and Silver cover. All the well-known characters from that Lone Ranger franchise all in one cover, which is making this pretty appealing. This is a 5.0 white page copy. Now this is actually a pulp magazine. So you'll see that the Lone Ranger sales here, they all say 1 of 1 on the census, but with CGC just starting to grade pulps, I don't really know how rare these are versus how many just exist but haven't been graded yet, so they're out there as raw copies. I imagine they're still rare, but how rare we don't really know. I wouldn't go by the census, for example. So this #1 issue sold for $2,500. Issue #2 was a lower grade, a 2.5, and sold for just $199. The artist on these, issue #1 aside, but the rest of the issues are done by H.J. Ward, who is a well-known Pulp Fiction artist, apparently. The other issue here was issue #6, so Lone Ranger magazine #6. This one sold for $550 in a 4.0. And again, only CGC graded example, but we'll see what the census looks like in 10 years when they've actually had some time to submit pulps to CGC for grading. So the last sale here in the Platinum Age was Buck Rogers in the 25th Century. So this is not Buck Rogers' first appearance, but he's another big character coming out of the Pulp Fiction era. He first appeared in Pulp Fiction in a title called Amazing Stories in the 1920s, and became very popular as a character. It was also developed into a radio show, and then that's where this title comes into play. So Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, this was a solo title that accompanied the radio broadcast from that era. So this was produced in 1933. Kind of a cool piece of art here. I've never seen this one before. The art is, I'd say, a little simple, but I really like the way that the use of colors and just the presentation. It's very childlike, but in a very fun way. Probably not for everybody, but yeah, I like this particular cover. And what's cool about this book is that it actually came with a letter and the mailer that it was originally sent in from Kellogg's. So Kellogg's was the sponsor of the Buck Rogers radio program, and they provided this comic as part of their publicity. So let's go ahead and look at this in a little more detail. From Kellogg's, dear listener, we are pleased to enclose your copy of the new Buck Rogers booklet. We hope you will enjoy it. In case you have missed the earlier episodes on the radio, it brings you up to date and tells you how it began. So it's a bit of a catching you up on the story so that you can follow along with the radio program that they're using to advertise Kellogg's. While we sincerely regret the delay which was occasioned by some of the last-minute changes, we believe that the book has greatly improved as a result. May we also hope that you are enjoying Kellogg's cereals in your home. It is through your response and interest that we are enabled to bring you these radio entertainments. And just as the Buck Rogers program is one of the most advanced and modern programs on the radio, Kellogg's cereals are among the finest and most modern of healthful foods. Please feel free to write us at any time. We wish to thank you again for your letter, both on behalf of the Kellogg Company and the characters and cast of Buck Rogers. We have enough books on hand now that we will be pleased to send copies to your friends upon receipt of a Kellogg package top. So I guess if you sent in a cereal top, you would be able to get a copy of this magazine, which now, 90 years later, in a grade of 6.0, sold for $452. So really not a high price tag for this particular book. It's really a cool piece of history. I love that it comes with the Kellogg letter as well. If I had seen this, I would have been really tempted to bid on it because it's just a really, really interesting piece. Okay, let's go ahead and bring it back to my prepared slides now. So this goes over all those top 5 sales and puts them into one chart. So top 5 from modern, bronze, silver, and golden here, each age, and presented with the most recent sales that I could find from those books, the sales data coming from GPA. So I'm not going to go over all of them, but I wanted to present them here. You can pause the video and take a look at the table for any that might be interesting to you, but some that we'll just look at quickly. Albedo number 2, a recent price was $55,000 just in January, and it sold here for $25,000 on ComicLink. I looked at the sales history from Albedo number 2, and prior to the $55,000 sale, the highest sale was like $19,000. So that was a huge jump in January up to $55,000, and it shows that the price has gone up, but the $55,000 mark wasn't repeated here. So $25,000 in this particular sale. I'll take a look at the 9.9s now because those are interesting at the moment. The New Mutants 87 didn't really have a recent sale to compare to. In 2012, it sold for $2,000, now selling for $15,000. The Wolverine limited series number 1 had a recent sale in January of $15,600 and quite a bit lower this time around at $11,000. Now, since then, we know that there have been 10, I think, copies added to the census. So that book is becoming a little more common in a 9.9. Now, we don't know what the 9.9s will sell for. We think that Comic Connect now has 10 of them that will be coming to market over the next year or so. We'll see what they do, how they release those, like on what schedule and what prices they fetch. Follow Automatic Comics. He's done a lot of great work on his YouTube channel investigating the 9.9s that are coming to market, especially the Wolverine ones, and kind of tracking those down and following that story. The Amazing Spider-Man 129s, 2 of them in this auction. One sold for quite a bit more than the recent price. One sold for quite a bit less than the recent price. Again, the high-selling one here had a CVA designation, and maybe someone thinks there's an outside chance they can get a 9.9 from it. So a bit of a difference in maybe perception for the quality of the 9.8 between those 2 books. The second 129 also sold 2 days after the first one. So the first was included in session 1. The second was included in session 2. I don't know how much impact that has in terms of interest or what buyers are available or how much money is in the room on that particular day. But the higher sale did come in the premium auction. Another interesting sale here, Tomb of Dracula 10, the 9.8 did sell for quite a bit less than the recent sale of $19,000, which was only in April of 2024. So that was a recent sale, and this ComicLink sale went for quite a bit lower than that. I wanted to talk about the Avengers 1 sale here, and I just made a correction. So if you saw a change in the table, I did stop to make a correction in this data. The Avengers 1 most recently sold for $89,000, but that was in May of 2017. I originally had the date wrong there. Tales of Suspense, number 39. This one has gone down about 10% since the last sale in June of 2023, so about a year ago. So that makes sense to me, about a 10% decline. We know the market has been going a bit lower. Another sale that I think is really interesting here was the Mad number 1. So a 9.8 selling for $52,000. That seems like a pretty big drop compared to March of last year, selling for $81,000. Maybe a good deal, or maybe that $81,000 was a bit inflated. 2023 was after the comic boom. You know, things were prices were coming down by that point. But it looks like things have corrected quite a bit further for Mad #1. On the other hand, pretty strong sales for All-American Comics 61, Detective Comics 27. Both of those sales were higher than comps from 2022 and 2023. Submariner Comics #1 had a comp from last year that sold for $33,000, and this particular sale was $23,000, so quite a bit lower. So don't always think that Golden Age books go up in value. They don't. They fluctuate just like everything else, but they usually take longer to fluctuate, and you don't always see the ups and downs in prices because you just don't see as many sales in the Golden Age. Every book is susceptible to changes in supply and demand, and you know, the market hype and fluctuations in the market. So there's no part of the market that's really immune to that. Okay, now we're going to look at the sales by title. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I just wanted to include it here in the data and in the video so that we can capture it. You can pause and look at this in more detail if you'd like, but it's the number of issues of each title that are sold in the entire auction. So Amazing Spider-Man and X-Men on top of the list as always, and a lot of other familiar names here as well. I am going to look at the titles by age though, just to see if there's anything that pops out there. I'm going to spend a little bit of time looking at the runs within each age. So I'm sorting this data a little bit differently than what I did in previous videos. Within each age, I'm looking at all runs that had 5 or more unique issues that sold, and then just taking the average selling price within that run to kind of get an idea for what runs are selling for the most amount of money. In the modern age here, there's really not anything that stands out being too interesting. There aren't a lot of runs in the modern age that are collected. Usually it's individual keys. So Uncanny X-Men, Batman, Amazing Spider-Man, you know, these are the major titles that have multiple issues that people will collect. One, I guess, that stands out a little bit is Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars. So this is the series from 1984. We will take a little bit of a look at the listings from that run here. So these were all the listings from Secret Wars that were in this particular auction. I'm not going to go over the whole thing, but again, I just wanted to scroll through these so that they're captured as part of the video so that people can refer back to it if they want. Something that's interesting, well, one, there's some signature series in here, but also there's a number of Canadian price variants as well. So you can see 9.8 in Secret Wars #3 had a Canadian price variant selling for $288. Secret Wars #5 Canadian price variant sold for $210. And I think there was one more. Here's a newsstand, Secret Wars #8. This was a 9.6 though. And a Canadian price variant of Secret Wars #11 in a 9.8 sold for $208. Okay, the next is the Bronze Age, and looking at the titles in the Bronze Age with the highest average value, Batman, Marvel Spotlight, Incredible Hulk, Iron Man, Werewolf by Night. I thought it'd be interesting to look at the Marvel Spotlight run because you don't always see anything beyond Marvel Spotlight #5 is like the biggest one, Marvel Spotlight #2. But this one, since there are at least 5 different issues that made it on the list here, figured we'd take a look at the sales from that run. So this is showing 15 sales from Marvel Spotlight. Let's go ahead and take a look at those. Marvel Spotlight #2, which you see pretty frequently, but Marvel Spotlight #3 here in a 9.6 sold for $839. A few copies of Marvel Spotlight #5. There's also a Marvel Spotlight 13, sold for $452 in a 9.8. Marvel Spotlight #14, $281 in a 9.8. And these are some pretty cool covers. I mean, I haven't looked at this whole Spotlight run before, other than the major keys, but if you're a Bronze Age horror fan, like these Marvel Spotlight issues do seem to have pretty cool art. Marvel Spotlight #18, a 9.8 with the CVA designation selling for $550. And then we get to some more keys. Marvel Spotlight 28, first solo Moon Knight story. This one was $2,500 for a 9.8. This one was $1,150 for a 9.8. Am I missing something? Oh, this is a 30-cent price variant. So that's why the higher price tag on that particular sale. The regular 9.8 selling for $1,100. Another one that kind of stood out from here was Superboy. That's not one I see on a lot of lists all the time, so I thought I would just check those 9 sales out. So nine from the actual Superboy title, number 68 here, sold for $660. There's a 9.6, 1.129 that sold for $378. Here's a 9.8 from issue number 213 for $575. Looks like a few more 9.8s here from issue 216, issue 218, issue 219. So kind of a run here of Superboy in mostly 9.8 grades that were in this auction. Okay, so now the Silver Age titles. What titles in the Silver Age had the highest average selling value? That would be Showcase and Justice League of America. So 2 DC runs here. Let's go ahead and look at the Showcase sales, and then we'll look at the Justice League of America sales as well. Quite a few there. 9 sales for Showcase and then 29 from Justice League of America. Okay, here are the Showcase sales that were in the ComicLink auction. Showcase number 8, Showcase number 17, that's a big key, the first Adam Strange. Showcase number 22, first appearance of the Silver Age Green Lantern. Another copy of Showcase 22. Then there's a Showcase 28, Showcase 35, Showcase 41, and a lot of these are still getting big sales. The Showcase 28 9.2 went for a little over $3,000. This Showcase number 41 went for $2,100 for a 9.6. So a lot of these are high-grade copies, which is interesting. Showcase number 75 went for $1,569. This was in a 9.6. So high-grade copies of some of the Showcase run here in this auction. Okay, so I mentioned there's a lot of Justice League of America sales. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I will scroll through here just to give an idea of what was included in this auction. What was interesting is these were mostly part of a registry set. So you see this note in the description, number 2 registry set. I don't know exactly how the process works, but I know that if you have a high-grade collection, especially a run of books, you can register that set with CGC. And I'm not sure the process for doing that or how you show that off to people, if there's a way to look at the registry sets that exist just to see like who's beating who and how they rank them, number 1, number 2, number 3. But this was apparently a registry set of Justice League of America, which is now brought to market in this ComicLink auction. A lot of copies, a lot of high-grade copies. I think it goes 1 through 22 in the Justice League of America run. The first copy here, 9.2, issue number 1, sold for $36,000. Many of these are around a 9.4 grade. Some of these early ones a little bit lower. There's a 9.2, a 9.0. But as we go through here, 4, number 5, number 6, you see a lot of these 9.4 grades. Number 7, number 8. And I'm just scrolling through so that if anyone's interested in the sales for any of these issues, can go ahead and pause the video and look at the actual sales figures. Now, there were some pedigree slabs in this as well. Savannah pedigree. This one actually went for a lower price for whatever reason. Maybe this issue just isn't that valuable, but selling for $1,400. A lot of the issues around it sold for $2,300. This one's $3,300, $2,200. So this particular pedigree, for whatever reason, didn't really fetch a high price. There's issue 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Now 20 was also a pedigree, but it doesn't have the gold label, so you could probably resubmit that and get a gold label book in that slab. Then issue 21 and 22 is the final registry set slab here. There are some other Justice League of America sales, but probably from a different submitter, or at least not part of the registry set. Okay, finally we're going to talk about the Golden Age. This is the last slide, the last topic for this video. The highest average sale in the Golden Age runs was Pep Comics and then Zip Comics. Detective Comics, Marvel Mystery Comics, Captain America Comics, Batman, The rest of these titles are pretty familiar and show up in these top lists all the time. But we don't always see runs of Pep Comics and Zip Comics, so I do want to run through those real quick. Here are the Pep Comics sales, so we're talking about 8 listings here for Pep Comics. There's a Pep Comics number 8, number 14, number 18, and these have some pretty cool art. I mean, these are classic Golden Age books. These eventually will have the first appearance of Archie, which is pretty funny to think about Archie being born out of some of these, like, not graphic, but, you know, there's, I guess, more mature World War II style content covers in the Pep Comics run. And then all of a sudden you get like a goofy character like Archie coming out of that particular title. It's funny. Like here's Pep Comics 21, which is listed as a bondage and torture cover. Pep Comics number 30, another World War II bondage cover. So this is a rare series of books, and unusual to see a run like this put on the market. So 8 different sales in this particular auction. Issue number 35, 37, and 39 rounds out the sales for this auction. The last title I want to talk about here is Zip Comics. There are 6 particular issues in the run here. Zip number 8, 13, 18, 19, 24, and issue number 30. So unusual to see that many Zip Comics issues coming into one particular auction as well. These are all mid-grade copies, but high quality for a Golden Age. 6.5, a 5.5, a 6.0, another 6.0 here. This is a really cool cover. This is one I've seen more frequent than other Zip Comics issues. This cover is by Irv Novick. I'm just reading the slab and the item description here. I'm not overly familiar. It's not too much World War II content here, but bondage cover, good girl art kind of cover, but also the hero just like grasping the monster by the throat, this fire-breathing lizard monster with a giant sword. It's just like a very striking image. So very well known from this run. That's all I have for today. That's a lot of data to go over, so thanks for sticking with me. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel for more auction summaries and comic book related content and data analysis. Share the channel with others in the community that you think might appreciate it. It would really help my channel to get more views, more subscribers, and give me a little motivation to give more content to you. So thanks for being with me, and I'll see you soon.